Welcome along to Brands Hatch. Welcome to American Speed Fest 12. This is one of the highlights of the season in the NASCAR Euro Series. One of the highlights of the season at the world-renowned Brands Hatch Circuit. The fans always flood the circuit here. It's a bit early in the morning at the moment. Some of them may still be on bacon bap duties before they get to qualifying. But in the next few minutes, it will be qualifying for the NASCAR Euro Series in the Pro Division. And then the Open Division thereafter. Both of our categories having their qualifying sessions here this morning. And the format has been ever so slightly revised since last time out. So a little bit of a change, and indeed some changes this morning compared to the original plan. At 9 o'clock sharp, we are set to go live with the pro qualifying session with 20 minutes on the clock. And apparently the plan is for all 22 of the cars in the Pro Division to head out onto the circuit at the same time, and then they will have the opportunity to set 5 flying laps at their own leisure within a 20-minute period. Now, usually what we do here is something akin to what you'd see at Monaco in Formula 2, Formula 3, etc. But with a split group, but we are going all at once at the moment. For now, though, we are just minutes away from getting cars on the circuit. We'll talk a little bit more about what we're going to see unfold in this qualifying session in just a few moments. But there's so much more on offer here in the Kentish countryside than just a round of Euro NASCAR, because when Euro NASCAR is in this part of the world, there's also a royal throne to fight for. You don't vote for kings, they take power with a little more force. Welcome to Brands Hatch, where fear, surprise, and ruthless efficiency will determine our winner. The legend of Brands Hatch tells that every year the mightiest knights gather on the Druid's Hill and battle for the throne. But only one may wear the crown and lay claim to these lands.
I will be the king of Brands.
I'm the reigning king of Brands Hatch, and I will defend the throne.
You don't have to look for the king, he's right in front of you.
Rubbing is racing. 'Tis but a scratch and a small price to pay for a shot at the Holy Grail and celebrate upon the NASCAR Euro Series throne. Who will be our new king? So the clock ticking down before this pro qualifying session. As we said, instead of the usual 2-group format that we deploy here at Brands Hatch, it is a singular group that we're expecting out on the circuit here, with 5 flying laps amongst them here at American Speed Fest 12, presented by Lucas Oil, alongside standing partner here of the event locally. An event that's expected to attract 50,000 fans across the weekend. It is the largest most significant and most exciting congregation for NASCAR fans here in the UK. And it is always very exciting to see everybody show up. You've got always a healthy mix of NASCAR clothing in amongst those on the grandstands. It is really an enthusiast paradise, of course. If you're into American motorsport, this is the weekend for you. Beyond the NASCAR Euro Series, there are support races that also continue that theme of big V8s, big power and brash panache American vehicles. There's a music festival stage going on around the circuit as well. A brilliant place to get yourself some NASCAR die casts and merchandise in person rather than the dice roll of ordering online. There are our marshals, always an integral part, of course, of motorsport, and we thank them for the early rise that they do every weekend and the effort they put in every weekend on a voluntary basis to make sure racing runs efficiently. Some very interesting storylines coming into this weekend across both championships, but especially here in the Pro Division, where it feels like the door has been, I would say, somewhat kicked open based or compared to last year. Of course, Vittorio Garelli for much of last season was really dominant. In fact, he had a points penalty around halfway through the season, which took points away from him, and if anything, that rather created a closer title fight than the reality of his performances, and he still ended up winning the championship regardless. Paul Giffreau is our points leader at the moment on 145 points. Paul Giffreau, Vittorio Garelli and Thomas Chrysonis, your top three in the championship. They're separated by 4 points. Now, an interesting story coming out of Friday. A rather dramatic incident for Thomas Dombrowski yesterday at Paddock Hill Bend. Looked like there was an issue somewhere in the right front of the car. Looked like it could have been suspension. The car went straight on into the barriers, somersaulted a couple of times before landing. The car effectively reduced to individual parts rather than a full motor vehicle, and somehow PK Carsport have a full car there this morning on the pit apron, and Vittorio Garelli is about to take part in this qualifying session. We're less than a minute until the Strom watches countdown to green ticks down to 0, and Andre Viegold, I mean, all of these teams have to put in an immense effort to get the most competitive car out there on the track, but PK Carsport have had to effectively build a new car from scratch almost overnight.
Yeah, definitely. Hello and welcome to American Speedfest 12 here at Brands Hatch. And yesterday we had a terrible incident there in turn 1. There was a technical failure for Thomas Dombrowski in the 24 car, and he hit the tire stacks in Paddock Hill Bend, and then he flipped 3 times before coming to a halt on the roof of the car. He climbed out. He's fine. He's okay. That is the most important thing. And then PK Carsport, they found a wrecked car. They had to rebuild it. As far as I know, they slept not a single minute. They were awake all night to rebuild this chassis, and they succeeded. The 24 car is there. It's ready to roll. So the reigning champion Vittorio Garelli will be out there. We're still waiting for confirmation that Thomas Dombrowski will be back at the wheel in the open division, but yesterday evening he was at the track and he told us he wants to get back in the car as quickly as possible. He thinks he's fine. He doesn't feel any pain after this terrible incident, and he's ready to roll. So we will keep an eye on the 24 car as well in open qualifying. But first of all, we will see the pro drivers here on track. The 24 car already pushed out of the garage. It looks a little bit different. Of course, they improvised with the livery a little bit, but the PK Carsport guys, they proved again why they are one of the powerhouses in the NASCAR Euro Series. Adam, you know, Paddock Hill Bend, always one of those places where something can happen. We saw already some incidents in the past there. Paddock Hill Bend is very special, right?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the trickiest corners in the country, one where it will tempt you to maybe do a couple of mile an hour more than you actually can in reality, and that goes for more than one corner around this Brands Hatch Indy Circuit. By distance, it is comfortably our shortest circuit on the calendar, but in terms of elevation change, in terms of challenge around the 1.2 miles of this circuit, it is one of our most complex tracks of the year. Paddock Hill Bend often tricks you into carrying that little bit extra speed, and you can end up running wide on the gravel. Sometimes on the sim, not that I'm a pro driver, but sometimes on the sim it'll take me a couple of laps to stop going at least two wheels into Paddock Hill Bend on qualifying runs, and these drivers don't have that many laps to play with. 5 flying laps is the situation here in the NASCAR Euro Series in this qualifying session, which is now green, 17 minutes 52 and ticking down, but only one car on the move at the moment. Can't quite see which of the cars that is from here. Is that potentially the 22? There are
It's the number 1 car.
It's the number 1. Okay, interesting. So one of the Alex Caffey Academy machines, of course, and that's been one of a few cars that's had a personnel change. So that's Federico Monti heading out onto the circuit. Mark Goosens, who is also, of course, a part of the Red Ant Racing team as their team manager. He is otherwise occupied this weekend with those duties, prioritising his management over his driving at this stage of the the Belgian veteran's career. So Federico Monti at the wheel of that car. Interestingly, the number 22 machine from Club Competition, that's a new one. Ulysse Del So is in that car, the number 14 Speedhouse entry, not here this weekend. And Jordan O'Brien in that car in the open division as well, so a new face joining in as well. We've got the number 25 from Team Blake Molan. That's another new entry. Jordan Wallace in the pro division. We'll see him out a little bit later, and some more additions and jumbles that we'll tell you about later on in regard to the open division as well. Now, the circuit looking a little bit greasy out there, Andre. I suspect that maybe a few of these teams are going to bide their time here and wait for the track to get just about as dry as it's going to get. There has been some rain this morning, I understand, and Federico Monti, not perturbed at all. He's going to go out there. He's volunteered to be the guinea pig. One of course, the co-founders of the Alex Caffey Academy Motorsport team, and last year's Rookie Challenge champion as well. So good to see him out in Euro NASCAR Pro for this weekend. No one else wanted the keys, so he jumped in himself.
Yeah, definitely, and maybe it's a good call, because when I look at the track, it's looking quite dry. There are some patches that may be a little bit wet, but it's like the track is in a good condition. And at the moment, he has a free track. He has no traffic at all, and maybe the longer you wait, the tougher it gets to get a clean lap without any traffic. So Federico Monti opted to go out first, but he's going to be the only one having maybe 5 consecutive laps without any traffic. So let's see, maybe he can place himself in a good midfield spot, and I think this is exactly what he's aiming for. Federico Monti, the team owner of Academy Motorsport, he's not going to compete for the front row starting positions for sure, but now without any traffic and a lot of clean air, maybe he will set a time to get himself into a decent midfield position. So this experiment, being the first one, may pay off, but we have to wait a little bit how the track evolves.
I must say, that's a very pretty livery as well, isn't it, on the number 1? It's a little bit retro. We do like that around these parts, and of course one of many things that happens here at American Speedfest is I think close to every owner of a NASCAR Cup Series car or a Craftsman truck or anything in the country comes out to play, and we do have a huge array of those cars doing demo runs as well. So more NASCAR thunder than just about any other weekend of the season with those demo runs going on. Now, Federico Monti has set a benchmark of 58.601 with 3 laps in the book so far. So he is continuing to chip away. It's nowhere near the kind of time you would expect in prime conditions. Everybody was lapping under a 53-second time in the full dry yesterday in practice, and the very best were getting under the 49-second barrier. 48.901, the fastest time we saw yesterday. So it's clearly not quite fully dry out there on the circuit. It does certainly look as though Federico Monti is having to apply a deft touch here, and it's a deft touch that tells me he's probably on slicks as opposed to wets. He's having to really, shall we say, ease in his inputs here to make sure the car stays on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, now it's a 57.756, so he improved a little bit. But yeah, I think you're right. It looks okay. The track looks okay, but you still see that there was rain this morning, so we have to wait and see. But when you see the clock is ticking down, it's only 12 minutes remaining. At some point you will be in heavy traffic out there. I see no movement in the pit lane at the moment. No driver wants to go out right now. Now we get another lap in from Federico Monti. He's crossing the finish line, and it's going to be a 56.232 for Federico Monti. So another little improvement lap by lap. The problem is, it's like a little bit like rallying, you know? When you be the first one out there, you clean also a little bit the track for the others, right, Adam?
Yes, I remember those controversial days where there was debate each day as to who was going to start the front of the queue in the rally stages. Very true indeed. And so the circuit will grip up as the session goes on. Of course, in previous years, when we've had that setup of 2 different groups, it's often seen that the circuit's had a couple of more tenths in it towards the end for some of the drivers in the second group to take advantage of. Now then, Monti comes across the line for what I believe will be his final flying lap. And it was it was very briefly on my screen, a 55.733. And as he completes that lap, Garrett Lowe is out on the circuit. Garrett Lowe, who was 11th fastest across the 2 practice sessions yesterday. The American, of course, racing here for the first time, as he has done everywhere this season. The eNASCAR star, the late model and legend racer in the US as well, with this interesting collaboration with the promotion team and BS Plus competition. Now he has a bit of a trend that he needs to rectify here, which is that his finishing results have gone race 1 Valencia 6th, race 2 Valencia 7th, race 1 Vallelunga 8th, race 2 Vallelunga 9th. He wants to make sure he finishes better than 10th here in race 1 at Brands Hatch today.
And we also have Max Maserati and Jordan Wallace now out there on track. The 89 for Max Maserati, the 25 car for Jordan Wallace. 2 Americans on track, 1 Italian and 1 UK-based driver with Max Maserati, one of the local heroes we have here this weekend. So Federico Monti should be done with his runs. He's still going quite fast. Hopefully he got the memo that he only has 5 consecutive laps to go. The other guys are still a little bit cautious there in the pit lane. I see now the 7 car of Martin Dubeck moving as well. Federico Monti is doing another lap. So somebody should tell him that the 5 laps are over. So we have to wait a little bit until he's coming back to the pit lane. We have also Julian Rehberg in the 77 car coming to the track. So now we get some dynamic into this qualifying session. And Adam, I talked to one of the mechanics yesterday, one of the crew chiefs there at Real Motion, and they told me in the past they always tried, of course, to find a setup the drivers are comfortable with. But Garrett Lowe and the other drivers, they have to learn, he told me. If the car is too easy to drive, you're not going to be fast. So they're trying to be more and more aggressive on the setup to gain more and more speed. And Garrett Lowe, he showed that he has a potential to go into the top 10 already, but maybe even the top 5 is possible. But you told before, this track is the smallest, but it's one of the most challenging because you don't even have a single real straight line. You always have to turn the wheel a little bit on this circuit, and that makes it, in my opinion, so challenging for the drivers to find the right balance and also the right line in the car, and the elevation changes you cannot see how they are on TV. It's like a roller coaster, and that's why I love Brands Hatch. And now we get the new times in, and that's your part, Adam.
Garrett Lowe, 52.888, and oh goodness me, that was Vladimir Osiortzis that Garrett Lowe found there on the exit of Paddock Hill Bend. That will have given him something to think about in the cockpit of the promotion car. Managed to just about avoid the rear of the 64 machine. So Garrett Lowe with the benchmark of 52.888. Maserati is just set at 55.724. Monty has finally been dragged back into pit lane and is now third on the standings. Jordan Wallace is also registered as having a time of 59.123, but this is where things are going to get interesting. This is where the lap times are going to start to come in. We see their drivers en masse now making their way out onto the circuit. I believe including Vittorio Gorelli in the 24 car, so that's going to be the culmination of a lot of hard work. Blood, sweat, tears and very little sleep, plenty of caffeine for the PEK Car Sport team. Congratulations to them. They've seen the car roll, and at one time yesterday, I don't think any of us expected to see that. And Paul Dufresne in a spin there on the Cooper Straight, and it looked like he may have been helped there by Garrett Lowe.
Yeah, I haven't seen the initial contact, if there was something between them, but the 3-car slow, and they already had a setback yesterday as well. The engine let go. They had to switch to a new engine, and therefore they missed a lot of practice time in the 3-car RDB competition. And remember, this is just the group qualifying. The top 10, they will advance to Super Pole, and they will then fight for pole position. So this is just a prequel for what we're going to see later on in Super Pole. Paul Dufresne continues, and he's really fast at the moment going into Druids. This is a part of the circuit where you really go uphill, then downhill again. As I told you, you cannot see it on screen that much, but if you're on track, it's really up and down like a roller coaster. A little bit reference there also to Carlos Sainz Jr. in the Formula 1. But at the moment, the times are getting better and better, but still, Garrett Lowe on top of the standing, Maserati in second, Lanza. Then we have Jack Davidson. He won an open race last year here at Brands Hatch, his maiden win in the NASCAR Euro Series. He knows that track like the back of his hand. So, and Girelli, look at this, 7th place in a rebuilt car. Dufresne now in 3rd place. Adam, it's there's a lot of things going on right now.
Yeah, the times are coming in thick and fast again. Being in the top 10 is important here for the front runners. They'll advance to Super Pole, where you have just 2 flying laps to determine your place within the top 10 on the grid. But they've got a highly competitive field and a very busy track to contend with if they want to make that work. Garrett Lowe currently still the pace setter at 51.0. Then it's Dubek on a 51.8. Julian Reberg at 52.2 in third. Vittorio Gorelli's just gone 4th fastest briefly there with a 52.209. But the deck is currently and constantly shifting at this stage because everybody getting the fast laps in. The circuit is still slowly and but surely drying, and of course that effect is enhanced as more cars are pounding around the circuit. But there is our forced new look number 24 car with a bit of a hodgepodge livery, a new colour scheme on the side, certainly. But Vittorio Garelli putting it now through his paces. I'm sure Thomas Dombrowski watching on with interest. Anthony Kumpen and the rest of the PK Car Sport team as well will be very curious about what their man can do at the wheel of this car. He goes third fastest again, a 50.822, but it's Gianmarco Ercoli who's now at the forefront of the session, a 50.434 for him. He has set 3 of his flying laps so far. Gianmarco Ercoli just beaten, though, by Paul Giffreau, who's got a 50.061. That's around a second off the very best that we saw on Friday. So the circuit certainly almost fully dry out there. And even after a spin earlier on, Paul Giffreau is on the pace. And Jack Davidson goes second, a 50.375 for the man who last year claimed a little bit of Euro NASCAR history as the first British winner in the series, the Scotsman, the first man to go sub 50 seconds in this session. It's Vittorio Garelli, and he's still got one more flying lap left to go, a 49.938. Paul Giffreau crosses the line, a 49.735. Both of them have just the one more flying lap left to run here. There's Gianmarco Ercoli. He's currently third fastest on a 50.110. But as those critical lap number 6s on the TSL timing come through, and including the out lap, that will be 5 flying laps, all that the drivers are permitted in this session. We are going to get a clear indication of the landscape. Jack Davidson has just completed his final flying lap. It's good enough for third provisionally, a 49.981. Garelli crosses the line for his final flyer. It's a 49.562. Ercoli follows him across the line, a 49.638. That's good enough for second. But Liam Hazelmans, the reigning king of Brands Hatch, he just goes top, a 49.514 with his 5th flying lap. So he is secure surely at this stage for the top 10 and advancing into Superpole. I would say Garelli, Giffreau, they're all secure as well. Chris Sonis 5th fastest at the moment behind Ercoli on a 49.7. Bruno Mulders, who this weekend is competing across both the Pro and the Open division in the number 72 Team Blake Molan car, he is 6th fastest. A few drivers continuing on. Liam Hazelmans is doing an additional lap. Now he's meant to be out of flyers at this stage, but he's still circulating. Only a few drivers who still have laps to register here, among them Bruno Mulders and Sebastian Blakemolen. Now Blakemolen could be a danger man here if he's out and he's running well. His last lap with his personal best, a 51.078. The bubble time to get into the top 10 is a 50.459. That was set by Thomas Toffel. Toffel is still running. The only 2 drivers still with laps left to run here are Blakemolen and the man who's already in the top 10, Bruno Mulders. So the 2 cars from Team Blakemolen have left it late here. The clock is ticking down to 0 now, just in time for Sebastian Blakemolen to be on his final flying lap. Let's see what Blakemolen can do then. His father, Mikael Blakemolen, this weekend is at Retty Jones Racing and running in the Open division there in place of Jill Linster, who we wish well as he's a bit poorly. Oh, Sebastian Blakemolen running it a bit deep there, unfortunately, at Clearways, and that is going to put paid, I suspect, to this lap. He comes across the line now. What is the time of the final flying lap? It's good enough for 6th, a 49.830. With him almost touching the gravel there, I'd written that lap off completely, but it's good enough to move into the top 10 Superpole. Sebastian Blakemolen, even with that little error, that was a really, really good lap time. I wonder how good the lap would have been if he'd aced that final right-hand bend. So your top 10 advancing through Thomas Chrysonis, who right at the end there went fastest of anybody in the session, 49.353. He's not got pole though, because super pole for the top 10 is still to come. But the order is Chrysonis 49.3, Hazemans 49.5 in second, another 49.5 for Vittorio Gorelli in third place, Paul Giffreau in fourth position with a 49.633, in fifth place a 49.638 for Gianmarco Ercoli, Sebastian Blakemolen with a 49.830, sixth fastest, Bruno Mulders seventh, a 49.917, Jack Davidson, a 49.981, eighth fastest. Fabrizio Armetta in the 55 Club Motorsport car, 50.394 sees him into Superpole. And the last man to just about make it through into that Superpole session, the Claudio Capelli number 5 Academy Alex Caffey Motorsport car. Those are your top 10 making it then into Superpole, which is coming up next. Let's quickly rattle off the rest of the grid because, of course, 11th down have now settled their place on the grid for later on today in the race. It'll be Toffel and Giorgio Maggi on row 6 of the grid, and all Swiss row 6 when we go racing later on. Siortzis 13th, Julian Reberg in 14th place, David Kajaya in 15th place, ahead of Ulysse Del So in his new environment, the number 22 Club Motorsport car. Garrett Lowe is going to be a bit disappointed, I feel, with 17th place, and I think his run may have been disturbed just because he was out there early and he suddenly had to deal with quite a lot of slow-moving traffic as the rest of the field made it out about 2 or 3 laps into his run. Garrett Lowe then, a high-profile absence from Superpole for my money. Equally, Martin Dubeck, the reigning Euro NASCAR Open champion, who of course always doubles up in both categories, but he's only 18th fastest. Wallace 19th, Lanza 20th, Maserati and Federico Monti bringing us down to 22nd. So a brief reprieve here before the Superpole session kicks off, and it is fairly straightforward here, Andre. They're going to head out there in the order that they have finished in that session, and there will be just 2 flying laps for the drivers to set a time, and of course those times alone will determine the grid for the race later on. So pressure cooker scenario here. They've got just 2 attempts to get a flying lap in.
Yeah, definitely. We saw Federico Monti, the first one out. This strategy didn't pay off, and also I think that Garrett Lowe was a little bit too early out there to get in a decent lap. He will be disappointed for sure, but we will have now a 10-car shootout for pole position here at Brands Hatch. I really like that format, to be fair, because it created some tension, some thrilling moments there. When you always have to take a look who's being on which lap, and also you were not forced to do full 5 laps. You could have also do 1 and go back to the pits and save the tires a little bit. Of course, also here in Brands Hatch, you get 1 set of tire, and it has to last qualifying in 2 races. So tire management will also play an important role here when we don't have any rain, of course. They were on slick tires right now. They can switch to rain tires if we have rain later on. When I look into the sky, I have no clue what's going to happen, to be honest, but that's the British weather that I was expecting from Brands Hatch. Adam, I will now head down to the other side of the track. You know, I have to go a long way through a tunnel to go into the paddock to grab a word with our pro pole setter, and I will stay then in the paddock for Euro NASCAR Open. So you will be alone for that session, so I can also grab a word with the open pole setter after this session, and then I will be back on the grid when we start racing here at Brands Hatch. I'm thrilled, I'm hyped, and I will be on screen in a few minutes after Superpole.
Leave me to my cabin fever. I'll talk to myself for a bit, Andre. Enjoy down there, as Andre alluded to. He does have quite the walk. He's overlooking the main straight here from on top of the suites So effectively, he's, I think, next to this camera, basically, on the other side of the circuit. He'll have to run down under the tunnel, which is a good few flights of stairs down and then back up. A bit of a maze for Andre to navigate on his way back to victory lane and the pole position celebration zone. 4 minutes until the countdown to command is completed here, courtesy of stromwatches.com. We can keep tabs on that. And as we've already seen with some of the shots around the circuit, there's plenty of fans here already, and plenty of big American cars lining the Colin Chapman Way, the road that runs from the main entrance of the circuit, effectively alongside the Brabham Straight, which is the main, not quite straight here on the layout. And as always, it is laden with American cars. Lots of fans already here and awaiting this top 10 Super Pole session. And I would wager that that top 10 that we saw in qualifying will be somewhat jumbled when we go to Super Pole here in just a few minutes' time, with that pressure environment of only having 2 flying laps. I wouldn't mind betting that a few drivers just slightly struggle to find the same performance. Of course, all drivers using tyres from Hoosier, and those slick tyres that are bolted to the car right now that just did qualifying. They'll also do Super Pole, then they will do race 1 later today and race 2 on Sunday. So they will do probably something in the range of 85 or so laps on those tyres over the course of the next 24 hours. Here is the format, the championship structure. You've got the Pro and Open Championship, which of course the same cars are in use, but often with different drivers at the wheel. The Pro Championship very much being the pinnacle of Euro NASCAR, and for the last couple of years we've combined the 2 race distances, or the 4 race distances across the 2 days, for effectively one 250-kilometre endurance race, which is more or less a replacement for the team standings. We have standings for the most competitive car across both categories, and we've seen quite a few of the drivers that are double dipping doing well in that classification recently. Looks to me like Vittoria... no, we are just lining everyone up right at the pit exit there. I was going to say Vittorio Garelli went past what is traditionally where they hold the cars, but actually they are using a bit more of the pit exit road than they normally do here at Brands Hatch to make sure that all the cars can queue up safely. Less than a minute until we go green on this session then. And you see there Thomas Chrysonis at the front of the queue. In regards to the Endurance Teams Championship, he's been doing rather well with that number 13 car. Some good performances so far this year, of course, winning races in both the Pro and the Open division here in 2025. His first season with PK Carsport, and Chrysonis has really leapt up the hierarchy of Euro NASCAR this year. This is a circuit he's familiar with from the earliest stages of his car racing career. It was here where he got his first podium in Euro NASCAR Open in 2024. And so Thomas Doffel, who just missed the session, another driver who's quick around here. I'm actually quite surprised he's not in this Super Pole. I seem to remember he and Thomas Chrysonis having a really fun fight last year, but Chrysonis, at least with PK Carsport on his side this season, seems to be a slight leap above some of his rivals from last season. So then, 2 flying laps for everybody, so they'll do this out lap 2 flyers, then they'll come back to the pit. So a very short window of time here for the drivers to set the pace alight. Chrysonis will be the benchmark at the front of the field. What can Hazemans, Gorelli, Giuffreau, Urkely, Blakemolen, Mulders, Davidson, Armetta or Claudio Remeggio Capelli do about Thomas Chrysonis, who was fastest of all just now in the qualifying session? This now determines the top 10 in the grid going into pro race later on today. Keep an eye on Jack Davidson. He was confident here coming into this weekend. Of course, he's in front of effectively a home audience. His true home audience, of course, is up at Knock Hill, but this is as close as we go. Chrysonis then putting the hammer down for his first flying lap. He'll be looking for a time in the 49s. 49.5 was the best we saw in qualifying. 48.9 was the best we saw in practice yesterday, but the conditions were rather more favourable than what's greeted us this morning here at the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit. You see there Chrysonis ever so slightly dipping into the grass as he tries to get the best out of this time. Let's see what Chrysonis' first lap looks like on the board then. Often with this format, it's the second lap that really tells the story. But a 49.537 immediately for Chrysonis, which Hazemans has bested with a 49.154. That's a very strong time for Liam Hazemans. And Gianmarco Urkely of 48.855 puts the Italian top at the first flying lap. But let's see, there's going to be one more flyer. Davidson quick as well, a 49.2. He slots in behind Vittorio Gorelli, who's third fastest. Chrysonis' time was eventually only good enough for 8th at the conclusion of those first flying laps. Gianmarco Urkely will be looking to improve his time. What about Liam Hazemans ahead? Can he do anything better? Thomas Chrysonis has just crossed the line for a 49.207. Hazemans with a 48.996. Everyone's time's coming in thick and fast at the moment. And the best time of all looks to have come from Gianmarco Urkely, a 48.528. Unless Armetta can do something special, or Claudio Remeggio Capelli, that is going to be the pole time. Capelli crosses the line, and it's not an improvement. It is Gianmarco Urkely with the benchmark by 0.4 of a second at a circuit that weighs in at 1.2 miles. That is a 10th gained per 0.3 miles, and that is very impressive around a circuit this short. Gianmarco Urkely has just put in a stonker of a lap. A 48.528 will net him the pole award and pole position for the first race of the weekend here in Euro NASCAR Pro. That all-important inside line for Paddock Hill Bend will be his. Vittorio Gorelli, second fastest in that hastily rebuilt PK Car Sport number 24. The team has been richly rewarded for their efforts there. The car will start in the Pro Division on the front row of the grid. Less than 24 hours time, or less than 24 hours ago, I'm not sure anyone would have even expected the car to continue. Interesting that Gorelli is the only name on the side of the door at the moment. That might mean that Dombrowski may not race. We'll have to wait and see whether he comes out here in the quali session. Jack Davidson and Liam Hazemans on row 2, the king of Brands Hatch from Euro NASCAR Pro last season in Liam Hazemans, third, and Jack Davidson fourth. Really interesting second row of the grid there. Bruno Mulders, the young Dutchman who, again, graduated from karting this season in Euro NASCAR Open. He is now establishing himself as a force to be reckoned with in pro as well. He's on row 3 alongside our championship leader, Paul Dufro. That is hugely impressive. Thomas Cressones, 7th fastest. Sebastian Blakemolen, 8th. Armetta and Capelli, an all-Italian row 5. And it's all Italians at the front as well on the first row of the grid. Gianmarco Ercoli, 4/10 clear here at Brands Hatch. That is something incredibly impressive. To put that into context, the gap between himself and second place is greater than the gap between second and 9th place. The rest of the field very close together, but Ercoli had something else in the back pocket there going into this Super Pole session. The fastest qualifying time we've ever seen here, a 48.390. We weren't quite there, but we weren't far off all told. I wonder if the long-standing lap record of 49.032 from Ander Villarino, I wonder if that's going to be under pressure here this weekend. Of course, we've got some innovations for this season, including the Samsonas 5-speed sequential gearbox, which is new for 2025. And I think we are seeing that have the effect of shifting this car, this Euro NASCAR machine, into a more competitive place speed-wise. A very, very strong package that we have at this stage in the NASCAR Euro Series. But some big surprises there, some highlight performances. Jack Davidson on P4, that's by far his best qualifying performance of the season. Liam Hasemans will be happy with 3rd place, and Gianmarco Ercoli, the 2023 champion, really making a statement here with pole position by almost half a second. He was walking there alongside Gianluca, the man who pulls all the strings in the media world here in the NASCAR Euro Series. Slightly less streamlined than he has been recently. The hair's grown out and he's become one Pablo instead of Gianluca, it seems. But Gianmarco Ercoli has risen to the occasion here for Illumatech Racing. That is going to be their first time on pole here in the NASCAR Euro Series, if memory serves me correctly. I don't think Gianmarco's been on pole so far this year. It's his pole award in his hands at the moment. Andre, let's go to you.
Thank you so much. Here it is, our first Strom Watches Pole Award of the weekend, and we handed it to Gianmarco Ercoli. Yesterday, you didn't want to take part in our video where I wanted to fake crown you because I think you didn't want to jinx anything. But now you made the first step by grabbing the pole position. How was it out there for you?
Yeah, for the crown I wait Sunday. I told you it's better. No, incredible qualifying, a great job of the team. We are back again on the top. With the old format of the qualifying changed too much the grid, and I'm happy to stay again on the pole. In this circuit is always incredible emotion.
All right, thank you so much. Congratulations. Here is the Strom Watches Pole Award, and here again, this beautiful watch. This is what it's all about. Gianmarco Ercoli, your pole sitter in Euro NASCAR Pro.
Really excellent stuff from Gianmarco Ercoli. He has laid down the gauntlet there for the rest of the weekend. Look what I can do, everybody. Pole position for Ercoli going into the race later on, of course. As always, we'll be with you early doors to bring you all of the pre-race festivities here in the NASCAR Euro Series, and there is an overwhelming number of fans on the grid here at Brands Hatch at American Speedfest each and every year as we count down to the most famous words in motorsport later on. Of course, though, qualifying is by no means done because the Open Division is up next. So the Open Division, of course, if you're unfamiliar with Euro NASCAR, that is where some of the veteran drivers, some of the rookie drivers just starting to establish themselves compete for glory. If you are a race winner in Euro NASCAR Pro, or if you've come into Euro NASCAR with a really decorated CV behind you, Euro NASCAR Open isn't for you. It's for drivers kind of looking to move up the Euro NASCAR ladder, as it were. And of course, you are very much allowed to defend a championship in the Open Division. Martin Dubeck is doing just that this season, of course, a two-time champion now in the Open Division in 2021 and 2024, and he's looking to make himself a three-time champion here in the 2025 season, but not lacking for competition, not least of which because Thomas Chrysonis is competing in both divisions this year. And again, that combination of PK Car Sport and the Greek racer is as strong as ever. Well, the strongest that we've seen from Chrysonis. Of course, it's the first year of the partnership, and certainly here at Brands Hatch, it does look like the form from Vallelunga and Valencia has continued on. If anything, I do feel that Chrysonis may be a little bit disappointed with starting on row 4 of the grid. He's been so impressive so far this season that we've got to the point where we're conditioned to seeing him in the first couple of rows of the grid. You can see the fans out there on the grandstand down at Paddock Hill Bend. That's a seat I'm very familiar with. I have seen him, or I've seen that seat plenty of times over the years. So then, the Open Division, as I understand it, is set to do a group session, if I'm not mistaken. In fact, there has just been a new timetable published, so it is just a straight-up 20-minute qualifying session. So no groups here. The timing screen's still saying that we're expecting a 10-minute session, but no, it will be 20 minutes and just one big group. So all the cars will be out there on the circuit at once, and it's just a straight-up procedure of see how many laps you can, or see how many bites of the cherry you need to run a fast lap here. It's going to be very interesting to see quite how much of a benefit the track experience will have for drivers like Chrysonis. I think that's going to be a really big advantage for him here in this session. So then, the American flags are flying, and, well, more so than flying, they're being rather beaten about by the wind. The conditions here at Brands Hatch are certainly not optimal here this weekend. A bit blowy, a bit more chilly than we'd maybe like in the second weekend of June. And we've also received confirmation in the last couple of minutes that Thomas Dombrowski is going to be racing after his crash yesterday in that 24 car that's been very, very well rebuilt by PK Car Sport. Dombrowski, I think, had a bit of a ill feeling in his knee coming out of that wreck, but he's now feeling good this morning. Got out of the hotel feeling ready to race, and it's great to see that he is going to be taking part, because he is still certainly in the conversation when it comes to the standings in the Open Division. We talked about the pro standings earlier on being close, and it's even closer in Open this season. Chrysonis on 131 points is your championship leader at the moment, but only by 3 over Thomas Dombrowski. So it was hugely important that Dombrowski was fighting fit today, and he is indeed fighting fit today. He's tied on 128 points and second in the championship with Patrick Schauber from RDV Competition as well. So that's a compelling little scrap going on between them. What about Melvin de Groot, the Legend Trophy leader for the over 45s? He's 4th overall in the standings, only 5 points off of the championship lead at the moment, which is very impressive. Martin Dubek just 10 back now in 5th in the standings as well, and that's in spite of more than one drama over the course of his season so far. Sandro Tavac-Kalatza just 12 points back in 6th. Bruno Mulder's 13 points back in 7th, and Roberto Benedetti 16 points back in 8th. So 8 cars separated by 16 points in the championship at the front of the open division at the moment. That is really, really close. Now, there are a couple of different driver categorizations to consider here. We've got the Master Trophy for kind of the most amateur drivers, as well as those who are in their first season in Euro NASCAR. It's kind of an amalgamated rookie and AM class, if you fancy. And then you've got Legend Trophy for some of the older, shall we say, more vintage drivers out on the circuit. And that is where Melvin de Groot is currently leading that standing by quite a way, but moreover, 4th in the overall points as well. Now, the session should be going green any time, although it's not currently ticking. Timing, I hope, isn't playing chicken with the field, because I don't think the field is going to head out anytime soon. As we saw in the previous session, they're not going to roll until they feel they have to.
Returns with a selection of touring country acts and its highest profile lineup yet, with headline performers on both evenings. Breland tops the Saturday night, which also features a special guest appearance from Kezia Gill with UK Eurovision act Remember Monday.
As you can see, the breadth of colours on the grid here in the NASCAR Euro Series, lots of fabulous liveries upon the cars, and of course a few different colour schemes, or a few different body shapes, I should say, sorry, was the phrase I was looking for. Chevrolet Camaro, Ford Mustang and Toyota Camry. Now the cars themselves are mechanically identical, but you do have the option of running a few different shapes of car in this series. Now, we are 2 minutes away from the countdown to green expiring. They've slightly rescheduled the session, and just had confirmation through as well that this will be much like the earlier session in the Pro Division, where it will just be 5 flying laps for everybody out there on the circuit. But of course the twist here is there is no Super Pole in the open division, so everybody has 5 laps to get their time in, so they have to make each and every lap count here in the open division. Thomas Dombrowski, I think, will be buoyed in particular by Vittorio Gorelli's performance earlier on 2 different counts, of course. He's going to hop back in the car after that drama yesterday. Wasn't his fault. The car just let go underneath him, and he had a huge wreck as a result of that. And so he's seen that the car is strong, but secondly, he's seen that it isn't running wounded, and that will have been a concern for him, I'm sure, in the immediate aftermath, looking at that car and thinking, well, it's not just my championship. And of course, that is one of the twists here in Euro NASCAR, where the same car is being used by 2 drivers across 2 independent championships. It does mean that you've kind of got to have each other's back. You can't beat the car up too much, give the team too much to do, or it's going to end up hindering everybody's weekend. The clock ticks down to 0. The session, therefore, should kick into life, and it has done now. The 20 minutes is ticking down, but nobody looking eager to head out onto the circuit that is now at least functionally dry. There are some wet patches, as you can see, down there at the bottom of the hill at Paddock Hill Bend, and then on the way back up to Druids. So it might behoove a couple of drivers to head out there early while the track is clear, and therefore avoid any situations where they get held up in traffic. We saw a couple of drivers struggle to find their place in amongst the traffic with 22 cars out on the circuit in the pro qualifying earlier on. And as a result, a few drivers are heading out there relatively early doors. There is the number 64 Speedhouse car, Sven van Leer, deciding to get his session underway, as well as Racing Happinessa, who I believe this weekend is the only driver in the female trophy classification. She is indeed the lady trophy classification. Of course, Ariana Casoli in the 14 car last time, she unfortunately hurt her wrist, if I remember correctly it was, and she is not here. The Speedhouse 14 car as a whole is not here for this weekend, so Happy Nessa will be running purely to try and get positions here without worrying about the Lady Trophy classification too much. Sven van Leer, then, the Belgian racer, who I think between watching his young son's efforts in karts and coming back to the Euro NASCAR scene at the start of the year for what was meant to be a kind of one-off farewell outing, he's still here and he's still loving it. So great to see Sven van Leer in the series for what looks like it's going to be a full season campaign, which is more than we expected him to do when we're in Valencia at the start of the season. And of course, this collaboration with Speedhouse starting last time out at Vallelunga, sharing that 64 with Vladimiros Tsiotsis, the speedy Cypriot, who's looking to make headway again this year in the Pro Division. Van Leer here running in open. We've got a few drivers then out on the circuit. Another one out there is the number 25 Team Blakemolen car, which is new for this weekend, and that's going to be Mike Wise at the wheel for this session. Jordan Wallace was in the car in Pro, and in the open it is Mike Wise, who has done some Euro NASCAR running before in the Rookie Challenge. However, his main source of fame around the sporting community is as a skateboarder and a wake skater, Mike Wise, so call him a multi-discipline athlete. Now racing with us here in Euro NASCAR Open. There is Thomas Dombrowski. He's wasted little time getting the car out on the circuit. He wants to get his 5 laps in as quick as he can. Another driver who's already out there on the circuit is Bruno Mulders in that number 72. He just qualified good enough in the Pro Division for the 3rd row of the grid. I wouldn't mind betting that he's a favourite here for a front row start in Euro NASCAR Open, so long as he can get a good lap on the board. As a reminder, it was a 48.5 that we saw as pole position in the Euro NASCAR Pro just now. And I wouldn't mind betting that we see... Oh, we've got a car off circuit there. I think that was Wise in the 25 on the gravel. Yes, it was. And that will certainly slightly muddy up the exit of Paddock Hill Bend, you can see the gravel that's been dragged onto the circuit there. The gravel which is a little bit more compacted and sandy immediately after the rain. So that's going to be a slippery corner exit for the other drivers to consider now. 50.422 last time by for Mulders. He's got 5 flying laps. He's done 2 of them so far. I'm expecting the open qualifying pole to be, if not in the 48s, then certainly in the low 49s. Oh, we've had an off. Is that Happy Nessa? Yes, it is. Unfortunately, the number 77 promotion car is firmly dug into the gravel, and that has triggered a red flag out on the circuit. And that will interrupt a good few flying laps there. Thomas Dombrowski was just ramping up the pace. He's gone second fastest with a 50.698, and Mulders a 50.386 last time by. He was just starting to eke the best out of the car. And now the red flag is out on the track. Happy Nessa had just set her best of the session, a 53.753. Tried to push that envelope a bit further, I suspect, through Paddock Hill Bend. And as Andre alluded to at the top of the broadcast, Paddock Hill is so easy to get wrong. Just carry fractionally too much speed or miss the apex marginally, which then compromises your corner exit. And quite easily you could end up facing the wrong way in the gravel, and that's exactly the fate that Happy Nessa has unfortunately faced here.
Which is why it's such an honour to be back year after year to be part of the competition, because it is just such fun.
Nessa, who is getting back into the cockpit again, of course, after being involved in that huge crash at Vallelunga. Didn't get to compete on Sunday in the Euro NASCAR Open Division, and so these sessions marking her first competitive outings in the car again since that heavy crash, and I think building her confidence back up again after that impact, that literal blow that she faced in Vallelunga. And the replay tells the story, as does the gravel marks there. Pre-existing gravel indents showing that Nessa is by no means the only driver to have done that. Unfortunately, though, she was the driver who managed to end up dug up there in the gravel trap, and now we are under red flag conditions. Gordon Barnes had just made his way onto the circuit. Of course, Gordon, who we've seen here before racing in Euro NASCAR Open, and indeed I think in the Pro Division last year at the Venray Oval. Of course, if you haven't been keeping up with the news cycle in Euro NASCAR, it is worth noting that unfortunately this is now our only June fixture of the season. The Venray Oval is not going to be run this season due to some FIA circuit grading complications. We hope to be back on an oval before too long here in the NASCAR Euro Series, but it will be road courses only for 2025. And that does mean that the interesting driver exchange program in the NASCAR Euro Series has been, well, ever so slightly bumped forward. If you were paying attention last time out in Vallelunga, you'll have heard us mention on a few occasions that we would have a driver swap program that would lead to our championship leader post Ben Ray in the Pro Division going to Trois-Rivières in the NASCAR Canada Series. It will now be the championship leader post Brands Hatch who goes and experiences that, and that's going to be a thrilling experience. or the lucky driver who takes that opportunity. There's Nessa's car then, out of the gravel, so we shouldn't be too far away from green flag, although of course the marshals and the hardware that they've used to pull the 77 out of the gravel have to be repositioned back where they live, so that'll be just a little bit of extra complication. There you see our start time for the race in the Pro Division later on, which will be 13:55 CEST, which is 12:55 UK time here for the British audience. So less than 3 hours until we bring you that race broadcast.
Please note the use of personal two-wheeled vehicles, including scooters, e-scooters and bicycles.
And Nessa's car, I suspect, will be pushed back into the garage. She'll be looking to find some more form when we go back to racing this afternoon in the Euro NASCAR Open Division. Of course, both championships have a race on each day. Pros in the early afternoon, and then the Open drivers into the early evening here at Brands Hatch with their first race of the weekend. The Euro NASCAR Open drivers fighting for the right to be the Prince of Brands Hatch. The Euro NASCAR Pro competitors fight for that throne and the opportunity to be the Euro NASCAR Pro King of Brands Hatch, which is a crown that Liam Hasemans holds at the moment in that number 30 Retty Jones racing car, which for this session is being driven by Mikael Bleekemolen, the 75-year-old Dutch motorsport legend. The green flag flies then, and the session will continue. 14 minutes left on the clock. And for Bruno Mulders, I think this is going to be quite disruptive. He should have one more flying lap in theory, because he's done 5 so far, but I think one of those was the in-lap to come back into the pits. So I think Mulder should have one last go at a flyer. He's on a 50.386 right now. As a reminder, 5 flying laps only in this session, which is why the opening minutes saw a few drivers hanging back and waiting for their moment. See there the number 1 car out on circuit now. Andres Beers has come out onto the circuit, as has Roberto Benedetti, Florian Richard, Claudio Remeggio Capelli, Patrick Schauber as well. You see Schauber there in the number 3 car. There is Bruno Mulders. Now he should get one more flying lap. He has technically done an outlap plus 5, but of course there have been 2 outlaps now with this red flag, so he should get one more lap, and he's currently doing it. This is a really important lap for him. He needs Dombrowski up ahead to not hold him up. This is going to be his one opportunity to go into the 49s, and a 49 is what he's going to need to have a strong result, or a strong starting position going into the race. Mulders will be on the charge then. He's got a little bit of tow here from Dombrowski down the straight. I think this is going to be our first truly competitive time of the session. Well, maybe not. A 50.460 is all we could muster. Mulders is still on the attack here. He's really dove to the inside there of Dombrowski, but unfortunately his flying laps, per what I have in front of me, are over. Ditto Thomas Dombrowski as well. I think his flying laps have now expired also. Martin Dubeck is just now setting fast times, a 50.749 last time by for Dubeck. Sven van Leer has done his fill of lap times. And his best proving to be a 52.453. Bruno Mulders certainly hasn't got the memo that he's out of laps, has he? Martin Dubek goes top. He's the first driver to go sub 50, a 49.809. That's a lot more like it, a lot more of a representative time from him. Oh, and Mikael Bleekemolen has had a moment down there at Druids Bend. He gets himself going again. But a spin for Bleekemolen. He gets it under control. He managed to avoid the gravel, all importantly, there at Druids. Otherwise, that could have been a slightly more lengthy delay. But Dubek, the man then with the benchmark of 49.8, I again would think a low 49 bare minimum would be our benchmark here. It's worth noting we are yet to see Thomas Chrysonis out on the circuit, quite notably. 7 cars in total are yet to make an appearance in this session. Claudio Remeggio Capelli has just gone second on a 50.069, and that's just his second flying lap, so he's got some more time to set fast laps if he wishes. And that was an unfortunate spin there for Bleekemolen, just attacking the curb a bit too much there at Druids. It's a curb you tend to want to avoid in anything smaller than a full-size truck, because it does rather affect your corner hitting that particular curb. And it can quite easily send you into a spin, as Mikael Bleekemolen found out. 49.219 for Martin Dubek. I think he might have one more flying lap left in him. But a 49.2 is a time roughly where I was expecting them to be here at the sharp end in the pro division. Let's see if Dubek is going to do another lap here. It certainly looks like he's on a lap at the moment, carrying nice speed there through the last corners of the lap. This should be his last lap of the session, if I'm not mistaken. It's a 49.4, and he's still on the move, but in theory that should be the end of his running. Patrick Schauber leaps up to third fastest with a 50.104. And Claudio Remeggio Capelli is homing in closer to this man Martin Dubek, a 49.477. As Dubek continues to circulate, again, I was informed 5 flying laps only here in the open division, but it does seem as though some drivers are doing more than that. Claudio Remeggio Capelli, a 49.6 last time by, and up into second is someone we're yet to mention, the driver of the number 22, Jordan O'Brien. Looks like we just had the 25 running out wide in the back of shot, but the 22, Jordan O'Brien, who has previously raced in Legends and Lamborghini Super Trofeos in the United States, making this pilgrimage over to Europe and into stock car racing in the NASCAR Euro Series, and he's just gone second fastest. That's a huge upset to the establishment here. I think it was him actually that went wide following that fast lap going through Paddock Hill Bend, but all the same, what a drive from Jordan O'Brien. .429 for him. Puts him a provisional second place with 7 minutes of the session left to go. Dubek currently has the benchmark then, a 49.219. There is Thomas Chrysonis. He has come out onto the circuit for the first time in this session. Also just coming out onto the circuit, Melvin de Groot. Thomas Toffel is just setting his first flyers as well. Top 10 as it stands is Dubek from O'Brien, the surprise package. Then Capelli, and Chrysonis here is going to delay Toffel a little bit, I think. Toffel was on a flying lap there. But it's Dubek from O'Brien, from Capelli, from Schauber, from Dombrovski, from Benedetti, your top half dozen. Then it's Bruno Mulders in 7th, ahead of Dominic Schack. And then this man, Thomas Toffel, who just went 9th fastest on that lap and was fully committed there through Paddock Hill Bend. You could see the car exploring the limits of grip underneath him. And then just behind him is one of the local stars joining us for this weekend in the form of Matthew Ellis, who typically wrestles a slightly different flavour of V8 around circuits like Brands Hatch Indy, but he's with us once again here in the NASCAR Euro Series. Not the first time by any means that we've seen him cameoing here at Brands Hatch. Here we go across the line then. What's Toffel going to put forth for this lap? It's a very good time. 4th fastest for Toffel, a 49.592. Puts him provisionally onto the second row of the grid. That's really impressive stuff. Equally, the number 21 there of Matthew Ellis, still setting fast times, although currently 17th. He did briefly jump up the order with a 50.281, but I think it got deleted potentially for track limits. And it was probably there on the exit of Graham Hill Bend if it did indeed get deleted owing to track limits, but he was briefly right up there in the top 10. Only a few drivers left then to set their competitive times. One of them is Thomas Chrysonis. Here he is in the number 13 car, the PK Car Sport machine. Man who at the moment is our championship leader in the open division, who has all of the poles this year. 4 poles in 4 races. But for now, he's only 12th on the grid, a 50.496 last time by. The 89 there having a bit of a problem. Frulio in the 89 car. In what I understand to be his first appearance in racing conditions in the NASCAR Euro Series, stepping up from Rookie Challenge, Davide Frulio. Oh, just a big snap there. Quite easy to do, over-rotating the rear of the car. And very quickly, it bit back. Speaking of biting back, Thomas Toffel, who had a bit of a rough time of it in Vallelunga, he has just set the benchmark. A 49.155 is provisional pole for Toffel. I believe that's the conclusion of his flying laps. What a mighty lap that was. Chrysonis is also on the charge. A 49.376 last time by. He's still got a couple of flying laps left to run here. 49.155 is the benchmark, courtesy of M Racing's Thomas Toffel. He comes into the pits. His session is over. Chrysonis will have one more flying lap after this one. He crosses the line for a 49.342. Remains 4th for now. It's Toffel, Dubek, de Groot, Chrysonis, O'Brien, Capelli, your top 6. That's a fairly strong top 6, I must say. Patrick Schauber only 9th, Dombrovski only 10th, Bruno Mulders only 12th. There are a few surprises there in amongst all of that. And only just coming out onto the circuit is Sandro Tavakkalaza. He's not going to get his full quota of laps in here. Only 1 minute and 44 left to go. He's going to have to hurry up here. Chrysonis crosses the line for what is his final flyer, I believe, and it's a 49.225. He's within a tenth of pole, but he's not on the front row. For the first time this season, then, it is going to be a new driver with the pole awards. Thomas Chrysonis has ended his streak there, not quite found a way to set the fastest time of the session, and Thomas Teufel has our provisional pole. He is the only driver left, I think, that can snatch that away at this stage. Sandro Tavakkalaza. He's going to have this lap plus one more to try and set the pace. He's not going to have his full quota of 5 flying laps because he was so late onto the circuit. But what can the Georgian do? So far this season, Tavakkalaza is yet to finish in the top 5. He's had 4 top 10s, though. He's been in amongst it all season, fairly consistently competitive. Has he got the number 9 hooked up underneath him? With the help of RDV Competition, who run this car, only 19th and only 1 more flying lap to go. The clock will hit 0 this time. This is his last chance to move up. 19th is where he's starting right now, and that is not conducive to continuing his top 10 streak. He needs a good lap here. As it stands, it looks like Thomas Teufel is going to be the man with the Strom Watches Pole Award. Unless Tavakkalaza can do something very, very special here. It's looking like a decent lap here from Tavakkalaza. I'm not convinced that it's front row material, but it is going to be our last stand here. He's got the wipers going as well. I wonder if it's starting to rain again around the circuit. All the same, Tavakkalaza comes across the line, and it is an improvement. It's 13th, but it's not enough for the top 10. He will, however, be in a stronger position for the race than he looked like he was going to be. So a good, solid final lap there from Tavakkalaza. He still had 2 more flyers to do, strictly, but he ran out of time, came out too late. So, for the first time this season, Thomas Chrysonis is not on pole. Thomas Teufel for M Racing, securing their first pole position in the NASCAR Euro Series as a team. Ivan Muller's squad. Martin Dubek, second fastest. That's a very interesting front row. Thomas Chrysonis on row 2 of the grid, our championship leader. He'll line up alongside Melvin de Groot. In 4th place, Jordan O'Brien. He's going to throw the cat among the pigeons in the established order here in the open division. From 5th on the grid. 6th fastest, Claudio Remeggio Capelli. 7th fastest, Gambarotto in the 11 Illumitec car, which is looking good for both drivers this weekend. Matthew Ellis, the number 21 car. The home fans will be getting behind him from 8th on the grid. Patrick Schauber in 9th. The RDV Competition car a little bit further back than he would have liked. The Austrian, he knows what he's capable of in that car, and he knows what the car is capable of this season, so he might be a bit disappointed with 9th all told. Thomas Dombrowski, 10th position. Great to see him out there on the circuit after his huge wreck on Friday in practice here. Roberto Benedetti, 11th on the grid. Bruno Mulders, then Sandro Tavakkalaza in 13th. Dominic Schuck in 14th. Andres Beers in 15th place. 16th for... Oh, the timing has just reset for me, unhelpfully, because the next session is already heading out onto the circuit, that being the Ford versus Chevy, one of many exciting support acts to the NASCAR Euro Series this season, with some classic hardware out on the circuit. Of course, we will have the Strom Watches Pole Award delivered by our very own Andre Viegold in the next few moments here, with Thomas Teufel, the first man other than Thomas Chrysonis to receive that nod this season. And Teufel, I think, after the dramas at Vallelunga. Lost a lot of time on the first lap of the race in Vallelunga on Saturday, and then got into a collision that ended up costing them the rest of the weekend. This is a bit of a return to form for Thomas Toffel, the strongest we've seen him all season long. And as the sound of V8s continues to fill the air here in the American Speed Fest, that's why we love the American Speed Fest. And we will soon be down there with Thomas Toffel and the pole award. Chrysonis' streak of pole positions then is at its end, but he won't be far behind. Andre, let's go down to you.
Thank you so much. I hope we can have a little bit of a talk because we have thunderous V8 engines at the moment on the track. Of course, the Strom Watches Pole Award for Thomas Toffel. What an amazing lap. How was it for you out there?
Yeah, I was not so confident during the pro quali because it was a little bit too wet. I don't have the pace during this quali, and I was thinking before the open quali that I have to do like if it's full without wet and without something. So I was 100% confident about what I did.
All right, thank you so much. Congratulations. And this is the watch, what it's all about. The Strom Watches Pole Award for Thomas Toffel. Back to you, Adam.
Big thanks again to Strom Watches for partnering with us for this season for the pole award and the countdown to command. The American Speed Fest is well underway for its 12th edition here. We will be back live with you at 13:55 Central European Summer Time, which equals 12:55 UK time if you are watching from here in Great Britain. 2.5 hours until we are ready to bring you the first race of the weekend for the Pro Division. There's the rest of the schedule as well. Don't miss a moment of the 4 races to come, because here at Brands Hatch Indy, it's always electric in the NASCAR Euro Series.